We often treat history as a closed circuit, a sequence of events grinding forward regardless of what we choose to do. The Book of Daniel challenges this by introducing a divine countdown known as the 70-week prophecy, a mathematical map pinpointing the arrival of the Messiah in Jerusalem. By converting 483 prophetic years into a daily count, the prophecy locks on to a specific trajectory of 173,880 days. Counting forward from the decree to rebuild the city, the countdown lands on April 6, 32 AD, the day Jesus arrived in Jerusalem. On that specific day, the population was preoccupied with the logistics of Passover and local politics. They treated the day like any other, failing to recognize the terminal node of a 5-century-old countdown. These ruins in Jerusalem provide the physical evidence of what happened next. Within 40 years, the missed window led to the total destruction of the city in 70 AD, leaving the temple in the shattered state we see here. This tragedy suggests that a divine timeline does not remove the need for human recognition. The plan is recorded, but its peaceful fulfillment depends on whether we are looking up when the clock strikes. Intervention rarely arrives with a lightning bolt. It usually starts as a quiet invitation, placing the burden of the next move on us. When Elisha saw Elisha's mantle lying in the dirt, he didn't find a magical artifact. He found a heavy piece of fabric that required him to decide if he was willing to carry the responsibilities of a prophet. This connection to the rocks and soil defined Cain's life. He was defined by the grueling effort of coaxing life from a cursed ground. Before Cain's jealousy turned violent, God warned him that sin was crouching at the door. The warning was clear. The impulse to destroy his brother was present, but Cain held the power to master it. Whether we are facing a call to a new responsibility or a warning of a moral collapse, the decision to act remains a human prerogative. Our natural response to these moments is to try and force outcomes through our own effort. Jacob lived this way for years. He was a master of the short game, using deception to steal a birthright and cunning to outmaneuver his family at every turn. But he eventually reached a threshold his cleverness couldn't cross. He found himself alone at the edge of the Jabbok River in the dark. The encounter that followed was a physical wrestling match, a grueling, exhausting night in the dirt where Jacob fought until his strength was gone. The struggle only ended when Jacob stopped trying to win by force. He had to trade his self-reliance for a blessing he couldn't take by trickery. A spiritual breakthrough often looks like the moment we stop fighting for our own way and yield to a higher purpose. The direction of history is rarely decided during a loud public action. It happens in the quiet, internal moments that come first. Cain's collapse began long before he reached the field. It started in the hours he spent alone, allowing his resentment to grow until it dictated his next move. For Elisha, the transformation was marked by the simple act of closing his grip around the mantle, choosing to accept the weight of the fabric. These silent pivots in the human heart are the points where the path of a life, and sometimes a nation, is set. When the internal choice is made, it eventually leaves a physical mark on the world. As the blood hits the ground, the internal becomes reality. Cain's refusal to master his impulse resulted in the first murder, and his subsequent exile from the land he had spent his life cultivating. Jacob emerged from his wrestling match with the new name Israel, but also with a permanent limp, a physical reminder of his encounter. On a larger scale, the failure of the people to recognize the messianic timeline resulted in a prophetic gap, a delay in the countdown that opened an era of grace to the rest of the world. In every case, we see a consistent pattern: justice for the choice made, paired with mercy. Cain was cast out, but given a mark of protection. Jacob was wounded, but renamed. The clock is still ticking. The invitations and warnings are already at the door. The only remaining variable is how we choose to respond to them.